Great. We are good to go. Welcome. This is the Spiritual Hacking Conference Call, and I am Avraham Calhoun, your spiritual coach for professionals. And we have got an action-packed call this morning. I am super excited to be here. The main thing I'm going to be talking about today is going through the PEACEWITH process and really understanding what the PEACEWITH process is and how it's bringing spirituality into the workplace. But before that, I want to start with a story. So since I have started to get involved with social media a little bit more and doing more promotion, I've been on TikTok. And I have been getting kind of sucked in a little bit to the TikTok world. It's been quite interesting. And there are a couple of things that I want to bring up because it has relevance to what I'm going to be talking about today and why I think we need more spirituality in the workplace. So first and foremost, when you get on TikTok, you're inundated with so many different perspectives from across the world. I'm talking conspiracy theories from politics to the size of the earth and what the earth is, to aliens, to everything. I mean, anything exists in this space. And of course, many of you are probably not new to this, but for me, it was pretty interesting to see how 1 minute you're getting fed this truth, and then the next minute you're getting fed another truth that completely goes against what that truth just said. And then there's a third truth. And so it's realizing so many people in the world who are holding all of these different belief systems and these different ideologies, right? So when you get into a space like TikTok or even Instagram, you're inundated constantly with multiple perspectives from across the world. Now, I think that might be a good thing to some extent, right? Because the more that we expose ourselves to other perspectives, the more resilient we are when we're confronted with different ideas that may challenge what we think. And we're a little bit more open to hearing and listening. Here's the problem. There is no restriction in these belief systems. And so really, these spaces have become a place for spewing your own truth, spewing your own opinions, but not actually having the value of other people's. So here's what I think, and that's all that matters, rather than here's what I think, what do you think? So it's not this space of going back and forth in a productive way. It's much more rooted in, let me just get my point across and what I want to say when I want to say it. So there's really no restriction in the way in which we're doing, sharing our truths online, if you will. Now, again, exposure to many truths can be helpful and positive when we have open hearts and open minds and we're willing to listen and to understand one another. But the problem is the attachment that happens. And so attachment is a common thing that's spoken about in spirituality, where we get attached to certain things. We get attached to the way things are, or we get attached to a specific person, or we get attached to a specific idea. And when it comes time to change, or when just change is inevitable, change is always happening, and we need to start moving the way we think about things, it makes it more challenging for us to actually make those changes because of the deeply rooted attachment. And I think that's kind of what we're also seeing in the workspace, is this deeply rooted attachment to the way things were or the way things have always been. And we're unwilling to change the traditionalism and change the way in which we work on a daily basis. Maybe because we're scared, maybe because we don't want to. Who knows, right? There's so many reasons, and everyone has their own truth about why we're unwilling to change. But I believe by bringing spirituality into the workplace, we can start to see several different improvements. So here's the first thing I want to talk about. In the piece with, when we're talking about spirituality in the workplace, I want to be really clear. What I am actually talking about is the introspection that you have as an individual. So how good are you at dissecting yourself, coming to a deeper understanding of yourself, getting to know your own values, your own purpose, and how that relates to the people and to the context in which you are in, right? So this first aspect of spirituality for the workplace is really the introspection, getting to know myself better so that I am able to have better relationships with other people, so that I can see what might be part of me that is causing challenges or negativity, so that I'm able to move forward with others in a more productive way. The second piece of spirituality for the workplace really is controlling our desires. We want to make sure that we're constantly controlling our desires, that we have tabs on our desires, and that we know who's driving who, right? How many times do we go through the day where we are just minions to our thoughts and to what we want? I'm going to drink some coffee now, so I'm going to go outside. I'm going to go have a smoke break. Right? Like, we are constantly being owned by our own desire, and we need to reverse that relationship. We should always be in control of our desire. Our desire should never have control over us. And then the third piece of the spirituality for the workplace really is breaking the ego. And through controlling desire comes breaking the ego, and through more introspection comes breaking the ego, because you're starting to recognize the pieces of you that come from your own lack, or the pieces of you that come from your own negatively reactive system inside. That's your ego. The thing that holds you back from being the best version of yourself. The thing that holds you back from being able to share unconditionally and love unconditionally with others. And that is really what we want to attack. So when we're looking at the Peace with Process and how the Peace with Process is helping elevate really the workspace, the first step of the Peace with Process is quantum cause. It's recognizing this universal truth of cause and effect, that every action has a reaction. And we as leaders in the workspace or business owners need to understand that if I am constantly in an effect of all the things that are happening around me and also inside of me, then I'm not actually the one that's in control. Rather, when events happen, I'm able to pause and really zoom out, get that perspective of what's going on, and then make an educated decision. That's being a cause. That's being in control of your own actions and your own reality. And so being a quantum cause is really being able to take that ownership over every situation and say, I know that I can't control the external world, but I can control myself. And I can control the way that I react to the things that are happening. And I, as a spiritual being, as an individual of love and compassion and empathy, have a duty to make sure whatever action I choose, it reveals more light for myself and for other people. And so if we start to actually incorporate this ideology into the workspace, things don't necessarily always become about productivity or become about how well you're doing with your KPIs or if we got the return on investment that we wanted, right? It becomes more about how are we genuinely making the lives better for other people and therefore making lives better for ourselves. We really need to be more focused on what we are. Are we a cause or an effect? And are we causing negativity or are we causing positivity in the workspace? Then we move into actually what we call the spectrum of desire in the Peace with Process, which is this aspect of really getting that full level of control over your desires. Now, you have to understand that your identity, who you think of as the self, what you are, is always going to encourage and motivate and in some ways manipulate your desires and what you want. And so the reason we need to have that deep introspection is because oftentimes there are belief systems that we cling to or that we're hanging on to that are not necessarily fully true. Right? They may be a piece of the truth, but it's not the full truth. And because of that, it causes us to create negativity based on these belief systems about ourselves and or about the world that we get from our upbringing and how we are. And so we want to make sure that when it comes to desire, when it comes to the thing that motivates me in my life, those desires need to be rooted in collectivism. They need to be rooted in empathy. They need to be rooted in the desire to maybe get a little bit, but in order for me to give back. So there's a difference between I have a desire for myself alone and just me. I'm only in this game for myself versus I'm in this game for me. I know that I need sustenance. I know that I need to be maintained. But the reason I want those things is because I want to be able to do better for other people in the world. I want to be able to give back to other people in the world. So that is the second piece of the Peace with Process. And then we move into right kavanah, which you've probably heard me talk about a few times on these calls. But right kavanah is essentially, it's your intention. It's where your mind is. And so this is kind of going back to what spirituality really is. Everyone doesn't hold the intention that we are spiritual beings who are genuinely beings of love, compassion, and empathy, right? Some people don't believe that, and that's okay. In Peace With, everything that we're teaching, everything that I'm talking about, that is the mindfulness that we're coming to life with. We are beings who can create positive change for ourselves and for other people. And so that is really the intention that we have. The main reason conflict and tension exist in this world is because people exist for the conflict and the tension. They don't exist to create peace. They exist to get their way. And that's going back into that desire to receive for the self alone. So when I'm in conflict with other people or when I'm having problems with other people, do I genuinely want to make the situation better for myself and for the other person? Or do I just want to get my way? Right? And that is the difference between being a person who is spiritual versus a person who's living in this physical world and only this world and for themselves alone. So right kavanah is really this first step of it is really taking this responsibility upon yourself that I am a being who can create a lot of change in this world based on my behavior, my thoughts, my actions. And while I know I have an ego and I know that I have this reactive, intense part of me that wants to create negativity sometimes, I'm going to fight that so that I can create more positivity in this world. That's the first part of right kavanah. It's having that intention that peace really does exist and peace can be created if I am dedicated to actually creating that. And then the second part of right kavanah is actually just maintaining your spiritual practice. And so that really is three things with Peace With. The first one is a meditation practice or a mindfulness practice. Maybe it's a 10-minute walk that you do every morning where you're focusing on the certain intentions that you want to reveal throughout the day. Maybe it's actual deep meditation where you're just focused only on your breath. But it has to be this aspect of mindfulness, of intention and what you're doing, the way that you're thinking, your mindset, right? And then the other piece is getting outside of yourself. How often are you giving back? How often are you sharing with other people? Like really actually trying to break your own self-centered thinking. And then finally, it's knowing your value and your purpose. It's knowing how you in the workspace can reveal the most light for people, and that's what you should always be guiding yourself towards, right? We want to make sure we're always in line with that higher purpose with ourselves. How can I reveal the most light in the world? What do I need to be doing? What is my purpose? So that is our main focus for today, right? We're really going through the Peace With Process, and as you're thinking about this week, ask yourselves, where am I being a quantum cause? Where am I creating positivity for other people and myself? And where am I not being a quantum cause? Where have I maybe been a little bit reactive? Where did I cause a little bit more negativity where I didn't need to? Where could I have had a little bit more self-control rather than overreacting or getting super upset or super stressed out? The second piece, spectrum of desire. You need to know where your desires are at all times. Are my desires rooted in only wanting to get things for me, or are they rooted in wanting to reveal light for myself and for other people? And that third piece, right kavanah, it's your mindset. Where are you thinking when you're in conflict, when you're in tension, when you're experiencing challenges? Where is your mind? Is it focused on the light? Is it focused on being able to be positive? Or are you focused in really only trying to solve the situation for yourself and for yourself alone? Now, that is all great, but here's the problem. This is only going to work if people take on this responsibility. And so the thing with Peace with Training is I can talk to you days and days and days and days about this information, about this wisdom, whatever you want it to be. But unless you actually go out and try to do it, nothing is going to change. So you actually have to try to become a spiritual being in the workspace. So one of the most incredible teachings that I've ever heard from one of my spiritual teachers is this idea that there's no coercion in spirituality. And so I wrote this small journal the other day that I'm going to end our call on, just because I think it's a really interesting concept. There's no coercion in spirituality. So what does that mean? I was having a lot of trouble working in the political nonprofit world because I felt that even people who wanted to do good got caught up in the game of ego and had only a desire to win. I spent so much time trying to educate and raise other people's consciousness and continued to fail. I was frustrated, angry, and annoyed, which made me susceptible to my own ego. My teacher, Yosef, explained that the reason I was not getting through was that we could not coerce people into spiritual thinking. They either have it because they work for it, or they don't, and they remain connected to the 1% world. Of course, we should find ways to share, and for any opportunity where there is a desire to elevate, those who are spiritually connected should try to insert ourselves. But when people play the game of ego, they get stuck in the 1% reality and solidify attachment to their ideas and solutions. I have realized that solid attachment leads people to becoming entrenched and blocks them from being open to other potential ideas and opportunities. My teacher taught me that the solution to everything is found in the spiritual world because it is open and endless. However, when we connect only to the 1% world without a desire to connect to a higher source, there is no access to this spiritual world. So if you're really looking for an endless world that has endless opportunity, endless solutions, we need to get outside of ourselves and start getting more spiritual. Thank you all so much to those who are on the call, to those who are on the Instagram. I really, really appreciate you being here. This was the Spiritual Hacking Conference Call, and I hope you all have a lovely day. Thank you.